I think you are the first person that we've really heard from who is making this sound like we have hope for reaching some sort of a compromise. How do you see the path to getting to that compromise?
Well, I think it's very tough, and obviously that's why we haven't made progress today. All I said yesterday was what McNerney, what Bowles Simpson, what so many people have said. We need a balanced package, and we need to all come to the table honestly, realizing that we have differences of opinion, but also realizing this is a math problem. It shouldn't be a philosophical problem or an ideological or partisan problem. It's a math problem. We have to get America on a fiscally sustainable path. In order to do that, we're going to have a balanced package. We're going to have to look at additional revenues. We're now essentially, as I put it, pricing our product at $15 while it cost us $22 to produce or $23 to produce. That math doesn't work. So we're going to have to sit down together, and unfortunately that really hasn't been happening. Very frankly, the president's put a lot of details on the table in his budget. I have a graph that shows a long list of details the president's put on the table, and the other day in a short letter the Republicans put on some conclusionary. I don't criticize them for that, but they need to fill in the details. We need to know what they're proposing specifically in revenues and in cuts in order for us to get to an honest discussion of where we are.
Congressman Hoyer, I agree with you that there needs to be honesty with some of these numbers, but there's fuzzy math on both sides. The Washington Post yesterday took on Tim Geithner's numbers and pointed out that a lot of the numbers that are in his proposal that's been put out in terms of $600 billion in terms of spending cuts are very fuzzy, including $44 billion that comes just from pushing a payment down at the end of the 10-year period, pushing it out by a month so that it doesn't get caught in the budget projections you're looking at right now. You're right that there needs to be some straight talk on this, but it has to come from both sides.
Becky, I couldn't agree with you more. We both have to be very honest and tough-minded in this discussion. Again, I say it's not an ideological or partisan problem. It's a math problem. The math doesn't work for our country long term. It doesn't work for my children or grandchildren long term. We have a responsibility to the American public to make some tough decisions on both sides. And if we don't do that, our country is not going to be where we need it to be, and our economy is not going to grow the way we want it to grow and to produce the kinds of jobs we want to produce. I've said, and I believe strongly, the best stimulus package that we could pass would be a credible plan that gets us to a fiscally sustainable place in the next 10 years.
I don't hear anyone else saying that, Stenny. And I don't call you Congressman. You know what I call you, right?
Well, here we are, the Terps.
No, I call you leader.
Okay, well, you're kind. I appreciate that.
Once a leader, always a leader. Because we found out
those were the good old days.
That's right. That's right. Well, I was going to actually talk to you about the House too, and you know how it works. And gee, it's nice for the president to keep stamping his foot that I won the election, but you know how the House works. The House says no, and it's final. I mean, I'm sorry, but you can say that till you blue in the face. But what I was going to ask you. Are you the last Democrat that still mouths those words, Bowles Simpson? Because I'm certainly not hearing that from the president's not pushing it, and not many people. Can you look in the camera and tell me the president wants Bowles Simpson and is in favor of Bowles Simpson, Stenny?
I think the president has made it very clear that he wants a balanced package, that he wants revenues, and he's also prepared to agree, as he did in discussions with John Boehner, to restraints in entitlement spending. I think the president's made that very clear. What John Boehner has not done, in my opinion, he's made a case for more revenues, but only by touching preference items, is not by raising rates. The rates now, Joe, are at 70-year lows.
But you know how much we want growth. And the president could be talking about entitlements. He could be talking about corporate tax reform. He could be talking about individual tax reform. All he keeps talking about is, I have this pen to allow rates to go up on the top 2%, and it's just like a broken record. It's almost like a speech, isn't it? I mean, if he were to come out and say, it is the goal of my presidency, in the second term, to do Bowles Simpson, that would be something I think the whole country could get behind in terms of leadership, Stenny. Instead of a punitive,
I don't know the whole country could get behind that. But what is Bowles Simpson? Bowles Simpson, I don't think anybody, including
you're going to cherry pick some things you like. You don't like the 28%.
Nobody likes Bowles Simpson.
No. Well, I like the 28%, frankly.
You do?
I think the 28% is a reasonable step to take to say, look, you can have the deductions. The deductions are extraordinarily politically controversial.
I know.
We know that.
Do a cap or something.
So that's the 28%. That's the cap.
Yeah.
I think that makes some sense. I supported it when the president first
Well, you're a
proposed
leader.
it
Because leaders lead, and you're a leader.
Well, I'm trying to do that, Joe.
I know. Well, we need it, you know, we need it from some other area. Dan.
Hey, Congressman,
Again, what we need to stress, Joe, is this is a math problem, not a political or ideological problem.
We can
We need to
fix
get
it.
this country on a fiscally sustainable path.
Congressman, if I could ask you two quick questions. This is Dan
Sure.
Greenhouse. I'm one of the hosts today, not Joe, in advance.
Gotcha.
Guest host.
Two quick questions.
Guest host, not a host. You're a guest host.
The first is, can you define in mathematical terms what is balanced? Is that 2 to 1? Wait, and very quickly, and the second question, much more partisan. What does it say that the Democrats have chosen to put Maxine Waters in a position of leadership? So
I'm sorry. There was some noise in the background. I couldn't hear your second question.
Now I do want to say that is not
That's
me.
a metaphor for the Congress,
So let's just go with the first question.
That is not me.
Can you just define, give or take, what you think balance is? Is it 1 to 1,
Well,
or is it?
I think balance is revenues and restraints or cuts in spending. I think you need both. Now, I don't want to 2 to 1, 1.5 to 1, 1 to 1, whatever figure you use, the math has to work. And frankly, the balance will come as to what you can get 218 in the House for and 51 or 60 in the Senate for. So that'll have to be part of the negotiation. But balance means you have to address both the revenues. We're at a 70-year low in the percentage of GDP that we're collecting. But our product is costing about a half more, 50% more. Our product being, whether it's defending ourselves abroad in terms of wars, whether it's providing prescription drugs, whether it's cutting taxes. Our product is costing more than we're pricing our product at about half or 2/3 of what it cost us to produce. That doesn't work. So balance is, how do you get there using revenues and cuts in a balanced way? And by the way, I want to make it very clear, in my view, and I feel this strongly, we ought not to ask the vulnerable in America to pay the price. There are those of us who are doing much better that can pay the price. Average working Americans, we have a bill that the Senate's passed. We have a discharge petition for a bill that Tim Walz has introduced, which says if you make less than $200,000 as an individual or less than $250,000 as a family, you're not going to get any increase on January 1st. That's good for the economy. It's good for them, and that we ought to pass that bill.
Leader Hoyer, this is Chris Whalen.
Hi, Chris.
You say this is an ideological. I used to work for Jack Kemp. The people in the House are not interested in continuing the growth in government, the Republicans I'm referring to, and yet this plan essentially does that. It doesn't really cut back on the growth in government. We're just going to pay for it now. How do you come to common
Which plan are you referring to?
Well, anything that's on the table right now. I mean, if you look at the White House, if you look at even some of the Republicans, including the Speaker, he seems to be saying, okay, we'll raise revenues to make the two lines come together and pay for that 20-something% of GDP.
Chris, you're aware of the fact, of course, we've cut about $1 trillion already in terms of spending projections for the future. So I don't think it's fair to say that this is all about raising dollars. It's not. The president, I voted for a bill, a majority of the House and the Senate voted for a bill which constrained spending, cut spending, if you will, cut the growth in spending by about $1 trillion. So I don't think it's fair to say that it's all about simply increasing spending. That won't work. The math doesn't work on that.
Before you go, can I ask you about Leader Boehner? Do you think his leadership is in danger at this point because some of the moves he made yesterday by agreeing to raise revenue and then taking a few conservatives off the Budget Committee? There have been people who have been saying he should lose his job. But how solid of a hold does he have on that position? Well,
I certainly hope he doesn't lose his job. Let me say why. I think John Boehner legitimately wants to get to an agreement. I've talked to the Speaker, and I believe that he wants to get to an agreement because he understands to not have an agreement after this election is over, and now is the time for an agreement. The further we go into the next session, the harder it will get. Now is the time for an agreement. I think John Boehner wants to get there, and I want to help him try to do that.
Thank you, Sandy. We really appreciate your time. Thank you, Leader Hoyer.
Thank you, Becky.
Right after this.